LGR's Talking Property is brought to you in association with the Kings Group, your local high street property business that delivers on results and service. We'll get you moving. The views and opinions expressed on LGR's Talking Property are those of the host, guests and contributors and are not necessarily those of London Greek Radio. While all facts, figures and statistics are carefully researched, listeners should check before taking any action based on information and advice offered in this programme. LGR's Talking Property with Karl Knipe.
Good evening and welcome to LGR's Talking Property, the monthly live discussion on all things property. Tonight the show is in two parts. In the first part we're looking at the tenant's fee ban. How is it already and over the coming months and years going to affect and change the rental sector? Landlords, is this good or bad news for you? Tenants, likewise. Are you really going to be better off, tenants? Who are the winners and losers, if any? Could this actually make the industry more professional? Then in part two, we'll be reviewing the newly published and updated book, The Landlord's Friend, written jointly by Paul Shamplina and Kate Faulkner. Landlords, this is a must-read for you all. This could be the rental Bible you've been searching for and need in today's rental market. We're going to get in between the pages and see if it really could help landlording and ease the pain. We've also got 3 copies of The Landlord's Friend to give away this evening to you, the listeners. Just text on 0737 66 11033, messages on Twitter at LGR Talk Property, or email us at studio@lgr.co.uk. That's studio@lgr.co.uk. The first 3 listeners to do that, we read out their questions on air, will win their own free copy. Yes, I hear you say. Joining me in the studio is Kristian Byfield from Base Properties in Shoreditch and Paul Shamplina himself from Landlord Action, all-round property world guru and co-writer of The Landlord's Friend. Now, Kristian started his professional career as a trained stage actor. He fell into a state agency in 2002 whilst looking for a job where he could potentially earn good money without returning to uni. He started with a small independent startup agency in Islington, working on a commission-only basis, and loved it. Commitment there, Kristian. Kristian met his now business partner, Anne, where they bonded over the fact that lettings could be so much better and so much more customer service driven. It was from that idea that they launched Base Property Specialists in May 2004 and continue to run it today. Base have established themselves as one of the finest service-driven lettings operations in the UK, with awards and reviews to back that up. Recently, Base won awards at the prestigious Esters yet again. Congratulations.
Cheers, Carl.
Kristian's nickname in the industry is the Viking because of his liking for attending industry events dressed up in Nordic fighting costume. Thanks for taking time out to join us this evening, Kristian.
Cheers for having me down again, Carl.
That's okay. Now, Mr. Paul Shamplina has spent more than 25 years helping landlords with tenant problems. Paul founded Landlord Action in 1999, which is widely considered the UK's leading provider of buy-to-let legal advice. He left school at 16 with no formal qualifications. He's worked in the industry as a bailiff and tracing agent, and after selling Landlord Action in 2017, he remains as a director and brand ambassador. He's probably best known for his hit Channel 5 programme Bad Tenants, Rogue Landlords. Paul's a massive Spurs fan and boxing enthusiast who still gets in the ring, I believe. Is that right, Paul?
That's right, I do, Carl.
Yeah. Organising also the charity boxing event each year, which is called Rumble with Agents. I'm sure there's a few tenants and buyers out there that'd like to have a few rumble with
I think
some
landlords
agents.
want to fight with tenants and maybe some other organisations at the moment.
You still play football as well?
Yes, I do.
For pure enjoyment or to keep fit?
To keep fit, but my wife said to me the other day, actually, she wants me to take up walking football. And I said, I'd rather be shot, to be honest. But saying the way I play, I most probably do. It does look like I'm walking, Carl, to be honest.
Well, welcome, Paul, and thanks for being with us this evening. Text Paul and Kristian with your questions this evening on 0737 66 11033. Message us on Twitter at LGR Talk Property, or again, email us at studio@lgr.co.uk. So, Paul, recently, I believe you've held your 5th annual charity Rumble.
Yes, we have.
What made you start this event, and what's your connection to the sport of boxing?
So I've always loved boxing. I've done 4 or 5 white collar charity fights.
Yeah.
I box regularly. I box at a gym down there. I live locally in Barnet, actually, Carl.
Okay.
But I box at a gym called My Gym called Boxer in Mill Hill. And I had an idea about 10 years ago of trying to raise money for charity. And I thought, what better way than agents beating the hell out of each other? They're all quite.
I should imagine quite a few people would pay good money to see that.
Agents, Carl, they're very cocksure of themselves. So I thought, get them in a ring, beat the level hell out of each other. So we've done that, and it's been a great success. We had it 2 weeks ago. I run it with my wife Rita, and we raised over £20,000 for Make a Wish. We've raised just literally a couple of grand short of £100,000. So we do that at the Avenue in Henley's Corner, literally down the road from here every May.
Brilliant.
Kristian, I think you'd be a great boxer. You've already got the nickname the Viking, so you've got all your PR sorted out already now.
Yeah. I can't say I've never been dying to jump in the ring, although
we'd have to shave your beard off because that's a disadvantage.
Well, that's never bloody happening. So there we go. That's that one out the window.
Yeah. What do you have to do to compete then? Anything particular?
So no, I mean it's corporate landlords, developers, letting agents. Maybe Kings might want to get involved next time round. Maybe you might have one of your negotiators, and people can we put 5 fights on. We put a free bar on, which does help, and we have an auction.
I think you need to put the free bar on before the fight.
Well, yeah, we do that, but we have about 300 people that turn up. But we launch it in. I always launch it in January, just after people make New Year's resolutions.
I must apologise for Kristian swearing there earlier.
Yeah, sorry about that.
I think you were worried we were actually going to make you get in the ring.
You're okay, Kristian.
More worried you were going to shave my beard, if I'm honest.
Right. So you're a lifelong Tottenham Hotspur fan as well?
I am. I've just come back from Madrid. We said we weren't going to talk too much about it because I'm sure you've got a lot of Greek Arsenal fans listening. I don't want to alienate myself.
Well, not that. I think we'll be inundated with
with abusive calls. But I went over there. I was a bit gutted, to say the least. But I did say, and the accomplishment is we are playing Wednesday night footballs and not Thursday night football. Let's just leave it at that, Carl.
Okay. Listeners, we'd love to hear from you. So contact us by texting us on 0737 6611033 or on Twitter at LGR Talk Property to give us your view, or email studio@lgr.co.uk. Okay, let's get straight into the tenants fee ban, which came into force last Saturday. What is briefly the tenants fee ban, Paul, as you understand it?
So the tenant fee ban came in on the 1st of June this year, and basically the government was saying, and it's been the writing on the wall, hasn't it, Kristian, for some time, to say, what? Tenants have been paying too much money to letting agents. A tenant fee is effectively a drafting of a tenancy agreement and a reference. Some agencies have been charging £400, £500, £600 per applicant per fee. And then, of course, letting agents will charge a landlord a let-only fee or a fully management fee for the same service, effectively double charging. I actually thought there should have been a cap that's come in. So, there's going to be a lot of letting agents now possibly losing up to 20% of their income, and they have to evolve with the industry. There's a whole ban list of items they can't charge for, and if they do charge for some of those prohibited items, they could be fined up to £30,000 by trading standards.
Per offence as well.
For the offence, per offence. So the game's changed, and actually, to be honest, with no tenant, no landlord, no letting agent. Rents have been rising, and the government has said enough's enough, and the landlord should be paying for that. Whether the rents go up or not is a different story.
We'll come on to that, won't we? So you could say Saturday, 1st of June, was a bad day for Spurs supporters. Wasn't too good for Anthony Joshua.
Yes.
And
most definitely for not for letting agents.
Not for letting agents alike. Yeah. It's I suppose it's the triple, really, on that day.
Yeah.
Kristian, what's your feelings? What do you
so
feel
look, I think
it's
partly an issue our industry caused ourselves. The government made some very clear warnings 3 or 4 years ago that they didn't like how this space was operating. They didn't like the massive disparity between what agents were charging across the country to their tenants. And we were warned as an industry, look, we're looking at it closely, clean it up, get more transparent, get more fair, or we're going to take action. And as an industry, we didn't. We failed to come together. We failed to reach an agreement outside of that. And as a result of that, the government have followed through on what they said they would do. And they came through, I think a lot of people hoped, as Paul suggested, that there was maybe going to be some sort of cap in there, some sort of halfway bench. But, I think the government decided, look, do you know what? That gets more complicated. Let's just make it black and white. I think the most important. Yeah, and I think the thing is there's a lot of regulatory and legislation changes happening at the moment, predominantly driven for the benefit of tenants. Part of the problem with that is it's really heavy, turgid stuff, and so it's brought out, but a lot of tenants aren't aware of it. They don't understand it. They don't know the intricacies of it. So I think the government did this one right to a certain extent, in that it's just really black and white. As a tenant, if you're renting a property with an agent, all you should pay is a maximum 5-week security deposit and your month's rent. That's it.
I've got a text, though. I've got 3 or 4 that come in at the moment, but just go to this one because I think this fits in quite well. Hi, Karl. Will us landlords just increase rents to cover increased costs put on us by the agents? No real win for the tenant. Mark Richards.
So look, that is going to happen a bit,
by the
right?
way. Just need
there we go. That's the most important part.
Thank you, Mark.
I agree. I mean, what's going to happen is I mean, I know one. I've got a friend of mine who's a managing director of a very big agency. They've got 10 offices. They're going to lose £800,000 in a year, and he is looking to increase his charges to landlords.
Yeah.
Okay, he's going to review them. Agents are going to have to look at upselling. They're going to have to look at let-only landlords and their books. They need to try and upsell fully management.
Because I think
services.
landlords, correct me if I'm wrong, from my understanding of the industry, from my depth of knowledge into it, landlords have been able to get away with relatively cheap fees with agents because agents have been able to recruit.
But they're trying
elsewhere.
to undercut each other to gain the business.
Correct.
But what's happened is there's been more legislation coming. So as you said, I'm a part. Obviously, I started Landlord Action. A company called Hamilton Fraser purchased my company, and we own a lot of well-known brands. We own My Deposits, and obviously we talked about the deposit cap, which is 5 weeks. We own Client Money Protect, which is now mandatory, and it wasn't a necessity for agents to belong to it. We also own the Property Redress Scheme. So there's much more regulation, more costs now for letting agents.
Our rent's going to go up.
I think in some areas rents will go up. I think some agents will be too scared.
The important thing is, right, it's regional, right? I think this is one of the problems in these conversations is we try to talk about lettings on a national scale. You can't, right? I think in my personal business down in the city, we get paid very handsomely by landlords because our average rent is about £25,000 a year. Wow. So our fees are good. So for us, there's very little difference. We're taking a small hit on revenue. We're not increasing any costs for our landlords. If you're renting
something, say, £7,000 or £8,000 a year in Sheffield.
Well, yeah, if you're Midlands or, if you're somewhere where the average rent is £450, £500 a month, you're maybe earning £500 to do a let only.
So you think, so what you're telling me, you think certainly in those areas rents will go up?
So I think, and I think the problem is what this legislation aimed to do was to bring transparency, which it is doing, but also to limit costs. I think, unfortunately, what you're going to see is in the lowest rent areas where actually the tenants are most vulnerable to their living costs, there you are going to see a monthly increase, which is going to increase their annual spend. So I think on a cost perspective, I think the most vulnerable will actually end up worse off. But as a whole, it brings a lot of transparency and just everyone's on the same page.
We're going to go to a break, and when we come back, we're going to speak to Georgie Laming from Generation Rent, see what she's got to say.
Good stuff.
Karl Knipe on LGR's Talking Property, sponsored by the Kings Group.
Στις δύσκολες στιγμές που ακολουθούν την απώλεια ενός αγαπημένου προσώπου, εμπιστευτείτε το γραφείο κηδιών Δημητρίου & English. 30 χρόνια στην καρδιά της παροικίας. Έχουν την εμπειρία και αναλαμβάνουν με συνέπεια και επαγγελματισμό τη διοργάνωση της κηδείας του εκλειπώντος, καθώς και κάθε άλλης αναγκαίας πένθυμης τελετής ή ακόμη και τον επαναπατρισμό του αποβιώσαντος στον τόπο καταγωγής του. Και όλα αυτά σε ασυναγώνιστες τιμές. Και δεν είναι λόγια. Μπορούμε να συναγωνιστούμε οποιαδήποτε προσφορά. Τέλος, σας βοηθούμε στη συμπλήρωση των κατάλληλων εγγράφων και την κάλυψη των εξόδων κηδείας από το DSS. Δημητρίου & English. 30 χρόνια στο πλευρό της παροικίας. 888 99 888.
Ο LGR οργανώνει και πάλι ειδική βραδιά με παλιά και μοντέρνα λαϊκά τραγούδια. Παρασκευή 14 Ιουνίου στις 7 το βράδυ στο Κυπριακό Κοινοτικό Κέντρο στο Wood Green με τους αγαπημένους σας καλλιτέχνες Γιώργο Γρηγορίου Κοκκί, Νίκο Σαββίδη, Ελίζαμπεθ Τσάπμαν, Κατερίνα Νεοκλέους και Γιώργο Γεράσιμο. Τιμή μόνο 20 λίρες που περιλαμβάνει είσοδο καθώς και μίνι μεζέ. Κρατήστε θέσεις τηλεφωνώντας στο 0208 349 6950. θα υπάρχουν ποτά προς πώληση σε χαμηλές τιμές. Πολλή μουσική, χορός και διασκέδαση σε μια ευχάριστη και φιλική ατμόσφαιρα.
Sponsored by Auto Deutsch, German car specialists in Camden Town.
And Varosi Lettings and Estates.
LGR, the heartbeat of the Greek community.
The Kings Group sponsors LGR's Talking Property with Karl Knipe.
Welcome back. Georgie Laming, are you on from Generation Rent? I think we can speak to you now. Are you there, Georgie?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, thank you very much for calling into the show. Georgie, I know with Generation Rent, along with Shelter, have been one of the driving forces behind this tenant fee ban. Are you pleased with how it seems to be operating so far? I know it's only a few days into it, but is it everything that you expected it to be?
Well, yeah, there's been a brilliant response from tenants so far who are just finding out about it. But yeah, like you say, Generation Rent has been working on this legislation for 4 years and we're really excited about it. On average, it's probably going to save tenants £404 when they move house, so we're delighted.
Oh, well, that's excellent. Paul, are you pleased with that?
Hi, Georgie, it's Paul Shamplina from Landlord Action, Hamilton Fraser. I mean, is there an argument that some landlords, if they are going to get charged more money by letting agents, they're just going to whack it onto the rent and then tenants can be losers long term anyway?
Well, I think, you know, as a renter myself, I would prefer my rent to go up £10 a month and cover fees than when I move house to be, you know, £2,000 down.
Yeah, it's a lot of money to fork out.
I think it's absolutely fine for rents to slightly go up to cover costs, but I think the problem is when there's kind of like made up fees at the start of a tenancy, which mean that, you know, often lots of people, like my sister has just moved to London and she's had to borrow money off of me that I'm not going to get back for a while because of how high fees were.
Yeah, and it's the clarity of it all, isn't it? You know, at the end of the day, market forces are market forces. They're not being put in there by individuals at basically finger in the air levels.
Yeah, and I guess there are some fees, you know, I once remember when I first moved to London being charged £200 to move in on a Saturday, and I'm not entirely sure that's exactly how much it costs, you know, but I can understand letting agents and landlords wanting to make some money, but I think, you know, being able to evidence how much things cost will make a real difference.
Yeah. Have you had any feedback yet from tenants? Have you, from Generation Rent, anything to say, well, you know, this is a lot better than it was previously, or is it a bit early for that?
So we've had some feedback. So, for example, part of the new legislation means that if you've paid more than 5 weeks' rent on your security deposit, you get that money back. And so we've seen some people get, you know, up to £400 back already, which goes straight into their pocket, which they're using, you know, in the local economy. So it's great. And we've also seen lots of renters being much more savvy. So, you know, waiting a few extra days to sign a contract and getting to know their rights a lot better, which I think will only be good for landlords and letting agents when renters are more informed.
Is there anything else in the rental sector that you'd like to see change to the benefit of tenants?
Yeah, I think what we'd really like to see is kind of better enforcement when it comes to the quality of renting. So right now, if you're a renter and you complain about, you know, mould or, you know, broken door or that kind of thing, something that, you know, really affects the safety of your house. Yeah. There's not really much you can do about it. You can wait for your local council to come and check your property and then maybe, you know, ask your landlord to fix something. But right now, if your landlord doesn't fix something, you're kind of stuck. So we'd like to see better enforcement. But, you know, quite like the tenant fees ban, this stuff takes years and years to fix, so we know it's not going to happen overnight.
No, it takes time. Paul, do you want to...
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, hi, Georgie. I was involved with the Deregulation Act and Retaliation Eviction, which came out in 2015. So there is some legislation there for tenants. Hopefully they will know, they should know about it a lot more, especially with tenant organisations like yourself. I mean, they can complain, and they can obviously put something in writing, which will, at the moment, stop a landlord from serving a Section 21 notice. But you're quite right, and I agree with you. Obviously, acting on behalf of landlords, there is a lack of enforcement. As you know, I'm on a TV programme called Nightmare Tenant Slum Landlords, and you just got to see Harrow Council going round and trying to do enforcement. You've got the Homes and Habitation Act that's just come in that hopefully will allow tenants to sue landlords. But I mean, I think until the councils ring fence the fines that they can come in and keep the fines and reinvest them, then we'll see a vast improvement, I think. But rogue landlords, and I say this to landlords out there all the time that I meet on my travels and have been for years, it's a very, very, very small minority. And I don't know if you agree with me, Georgie, compared to, you've got 9.5 million renters, and obviously there's 2 million landlords out there. But I think the rhetoric that landlords get about rogue landlord this, rogue landlord that, I think maybe a little bit unfair. I don't know what you think as a whole, Georgie.
Yeah, I think there's like different levels, and the rogue landlord kind of nickname is kind of unhelpful, right? Because rogue, you know, some of these people are criminal landlords.
Should be the right.
There's a difference between being a criminal landlord and from being a landlord that might be slightly unethical, or a landlord that doesn't really know how to be a landlord. And I think there are lots of different categories, because you have people who are professional landlords, they've decided to go into the business, but you also have people who, you know, they've inherited a house.
I think if generation engaged more and saw the landlord community as being vital, and that actually, you know, we're providing homes for tenants, I think they feel a bit bruised when it comes to generation rent, and I think there could be a bit more work done.
I think one of the problems with tenants is there is actually a lot of laws and regulations to protect them. It's just very convoluted.
Yes.
There isn't a good, singular, accessible portal for tenants where a tenant can easily go in and go, right, this is my problem, and you go through some multiple choice things and it says, right, this law protects you.
Does a shelter have that?
This is, I mean, I don't know that any of them do. It's a really complex space, and I think, you know, landlords struggle to get their head around the myriad of legislation there is now. Agents, you know, it's a huge burden for us as letting agents as well. You know, and so I think there is this perception that tenants aren't protected. I think the reality is there are lots of protections, but I think, you know, at the end of the day, when it comes to living in your own home, I'm not just a letting agent. I've been and still am a tenant in London. I've been a private tenant in London for nearly 21 years now. I've seen it all since then. I've been through all sorts of different types of letting agents, worked with all sorts of different landlords over that time, you know, and seen a lot of different things. But it's one of those ones, it's a frustration that, you know, there is a lot of protection out there, but it's very confusing for tenants, and to easily access the information they need to get the protection they want,
it in layman's language,
isn't there?
I think, Georgie, this is the problem, gentlemen and Georgie. A text come in here. So sell my properties and retire or keep them. I think that is the problem. That's obviously a landlord. That's somebody who's actually texted before, Panny. So that is the problem. That's what we've got to be very careful about.
Landlords
don't alienate
and
landlords.
wanting to evict tenants and making more homelessness.
Look, there's a lot of scaremongering at the moment as well. You know, I think there was a lot of scaremongering about when the tenants fee ban was announced and the framework for letting agents. There was a lot of scaremongering in our industry about
Section
what that
21,
was and what the impact was. Next, sort of around the corner is Section 21, and again, you know, I've heard people say, oh, you know, this could mean a third of landlords can leave the market.
People have to calm down.
We all know that's not going to happen.
Yes.
I completely agree, and I think, you know, the proof of that is that Scotland has had lots of this legislation before, and you can track the impact. So, you know, I think that's often where landlords, letting agents and tenants organisations fall out, is about, you kind of know, like, changing the terms of the debate. Like, what people want is a home that is safe and fair and secure, and that's what they're asking for, really, and I think we can all agree on that.
And listen, Georgie, at the end of the day, a landlord that wants to be a landlord long term wants a good tenant are worth their weight in gold. They want a tenant to stay in a property as long as possible, pay the rent on time, allow them access, look after property, you know, and have no void period. I mean, that's really critical for a landlord.
Georgie, thank you very much for joining us. We're going to have to go to a break. That was absolutely fantastic. Your piece there really, really helped enhance this evening's programme. Thanks, Georgie. We're going to a break.
Bye.
This is your station, LGR.
Kings Group has been in the high street for nearly 30 years. Agreeing a sale on your property is the easy part. Ensuring it completes and you move is the hard part in today's market. That's why we're here with you every step of the way, and there's no upfront fee. At Kings Group, we are local property experts with a proven track record. Kings have won over 50 Estes Awards for customer service, voted for by you, the public. We have also been awarded the FIFO Gold Service 2018 Award for outstanding service, voted again by our satisfied clients. We are motivated to move you with the minimum fuss in the quickest possible time, while ensuring you are given the personal customer service and advice you deserve. Kings Group, with branch offices across North London, East London, Hertfordshire and Essex. Kings Group offer a special discount of 20% to LGR listeners off all our standard fees. Simply mention LGR's Talking Property for further information. Please call on 01707 872 000 or visit www.kings-group.net. Kings Group, you only pay on results, not promises.
LGR, the heartbeat of the Greek community.
Great. Glad to have you all back. Hopefully you've just had your cafe. We're now going to move on and talk about Paul and Kate's new book. Before we do so, this is your chance to get in touch and ask Paul or Kristian those questions and worries about being a landlord or a tenant. Text us on 0737 6611033 or message us on Twitter at LGR Talk Property or email us studio@lgr.co.uk. Paul, I'd like to turn our attention to yours and Kate's, as I said, recently published a book that's out now called The Landlord's Friend, available in all good bookshops, as they say.
Yes, and it's on Amazon, yes.
Amazon as well. This is not actually a new book, though, is it?
Well, no, I first did a book in 2015 when all the changes started.
Yep.
It is painful writing a book, I must admit. I mean, I don't use a laptop in the first time, and I decided I was at my apartment in Spain, and I was writing on loads of bits of paper, and there was a gust of wind, and all the papers went in this room. I had to send my kids in to get that.
I don't think people will be too sorry for you in your
exactly.
apartment in Spain.
Well, exactly, I must admit. But there was a gust of wind, but it was a nightmare writing a book because there's so many changes, Carl. So then Kate and myself said, right, in 2019 we do another one, and that took us about 9-10 months. And of course, since that's happened, the government announced that they want to look at abolishing Section 21, which I'm involved on that consultation, and we can maybe talk about that a little bit later. But this is a book, an easy reading book for self-managed landlords. Self-managed landlords.
Self-managed landlords. Because I've read it, I thought it was really, really good. I mean, I used the word the Bible, property Bible.
Your commission's coming later, Carl.
No, because I think whether you're an experienced landlord or you've never done it before, just starting out, I think it's worth reading because there was things that I read in there that I knew about that I've forgotten about as well. And I think it's like a refresher.
It is. I mean,
we all need that, don't we?
Most definitely. There's 51 chapters. I put case studies in there. I talk about, if you're a landlord, you're a newbie landlord or an experienced landlord, join a landlord association like the National Landlord Association or the Residential Landlord Association. We own a website at Hamilton Fraser called Landlord Zone, which has been going 20 years. Read, engage and understand what's going on. If you're looking at sourcing a property, find how you're going to source it, get up to speed with the tax, which is ever changing, and obviously the abolishment of mortgage interest relief has had a huge impact as well. And then finding a letting agent. A letting agent, Kristian, is worth their weight in gold. They will make or break
a good agent. Yeah, absolutely.
I believe
absolutely.
That.
I think nowadays, particularly in the heavily regulated, legislated space that it is, and that's just going to keep escalating, and it's going to get more stringently and more effectively enforced.
On that actual point, funny, we've just got a text in saying with the amount of continued laws and legislation coming into the rental world, Paul is going to be a millionaire and updating his book every 6 months. Is that the plan, Paul?
Well, the plan is whoever that text is totally wrong. You never become a millionaire at writing a book. That's guaranteed. I wrote it because it's a to-do guide basically about what and how you need to do things. Yeah. And of course the 2015 book is that day. The whole point about this, I say, and I've been public speaking for 20 years. I'm at the Landlord Investment Show next Thursday if anyone wants to hear me speak, which is how to find the perfect tenant.
Where is that?
That's at Olympia, the Landlord Investment Show, and I have a stand there as well. Is actually if you're a full-time landlord, I mean, 90% of landlords out there have 1 and 2 properties.
Yeah.
They're full-time, they work. They should be using letting agents, accredited letting agents, like Kristian's agency.
Particularly in how things are now. I mean, you go back 3 or 4 years ago, maybe, but the volume of legislation in the last 3 years.
What it is, the letting agent now is a compliance officer.
Yes.
They will protect you from HMO regulations, right to rent.
It's like having a professional indemnity policy.
Exactly, and all agents have to have client money protect, like what we offer, and professional indemnity insurance. But the whole point about this book I put on it is landlording works long time. Yes, it's harder. I mean, the average buy-to-let property now in London costs £514,000 with a yield of 4%. Right, it's crazy, you know, and the market's going to harden. There will be landlords at an exit, but I think that creates opportunity. But most importantly, Carl, a landlord put a price on your time.
So we got another text in here then. This came in a little while ago, but actually this is a really good point to come out. So sell my properties and retire or keep them?
Well, firstly, it depends where your portfolio is. What are you yielding? What are you getting in? What's your lending and exposure on? What type of tenants do you have in there? Are they long-term tenants? You know, what's your personal situation? I think the biggest problem with landlords, and I'm a landlord myself as well, is landlords don't treat it like a business. And if they do treat it like a business, they have to have an exit plan because you have all different types of landlords. What's your objectives? So are you a passive investor? Are you a landlord looking to accelerate your portfolio? Are you an accidental, got 1 and 2s?
That's in part 1 of the book, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Right.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. You have to understand about it. And I have a lot of older landlords that are thinking, you know, that it's not for me, I'm looking at selling. But actually, you know what? Don't do the management. Give it to a letting agent. Pay 10% full management. How much do you charge, by the way?
We're 15% plus VAT, so
15%.
18%.
So 10 to 15% fully management. You offset it against. But do you really want to take a call, Carl, from your tenant that's drunk at 4 a.m. they lost the keys?
No, not at all.
Do you want to take a call that the boiler's broken down? I'd rather a letting agent take those calls.
I think you want to get dragged to court because you let a tenant without doing right to rent checks.
Correct. You can be,
serious.
There's so many
serious. And
issues
that's what a decent agent. But you've got to do your diligence on a letting agent. Go to a website called allagents.co.uk, which is a review site, and it will tell you if that agent's good. I mean, talking about agents,
or word of mouth.
Or word of mouth. I mean,
Shop
letting
around.
agents out there, there's
Absolutely.
22,000 letting agents. I mean, I've come across a lot of rogue agents, as you can imagine, after 25 years, and this is a plug for the TV programme. So next Monday at 9 o'clock on Channel 5, I expose a dodgy letting agent in East London called Langham Ward, who steal thousands and thousands of pounds of rent from landlords. Don't pass it on.
Is this going to stop now with the
with client money protection?
Yes, and all the other.
But it should do.
It's only if it's effectively enforced, right? So
standards.
CMP was sort of pushed through. CMP should have been brought in years ago. We all agree with
2001.
that. I mean, Arla have had it as a
Sorry
standard.
for the listeners. What's CMP?
So CMP is client money protection. So
Okay.
it's an insurance that protects deposits or rent that an agent handles.
They misappropriate the funds.
Exactly, and it's something that a lot of the organisations like Arla and stuff have had as a requirement of membership for years now, and have been petitioning government to do that.
And we
for
sell it
years.
independently at Hamilton Fraser to
yeah,
independent agents.
Yeah, it's been
Client Money
offered. It's
Protect.
been offered a lot around. The government have finally pushed it through. It was a bit of a knee-jerk reaction because to do the tenant fee ban, there was a lot of fear that was going to push a lot of agents out of business, and therefore you could see a lot of businesses disappear with rent and deposits. And so the CMP mandatory law was brought in.
I mean, the ironic thing is, and we sell Client Money Protect for £400 plus VAT to a letting agent, which is not a lot of money.
Yeah.
And it's exactly like ABTA. When you book a holiday, Carl, and the holiday company goes skint, you'll get your money back, and that's what it is. The landlords and tenants need that protection.
Well, they do, but the problem's always been from the industry that I've seen it is that people want to cut corners all the time, and you can't do that. You couldn't do it originally, but you definitely cannot do that anymore.
Correct.
And look, it's tricky, right? There have been cases of agents saying they're members of this and saying they've got that because they stick it on their website, they stick it in a window, whatever, and then actually, when it comes down to it, they don't.
So what? If you're a landlord, what should you ask for then?
So if you're
I think you again talk about this in the book.
Well, I do. I mean, if you're a landlord, the first thing I would do, and you just buy a property, whatever, you find a decent local agent, whether you speak to your mate in the golf course and he rents a property out and he recommends an agent, or you do your diligence, what's the local reputation, and then you go into the letting agents, you find out how many properties they've got in the management, what's their terms of business, do they do inventory checks, do they charge a rent guarantee? You know, if a decent letting agent and full management, if I went to a place like what Kristian runs or whatever, they'd have sheets and sheets of services about what they do.
Yeah.
And then I'd say, do you belong to a trade body? You know, what do I get for my money? And the difference between let only and fully management is only a few percent. And I would always recommend a landlord, if you don't have the time, to use a letting agent on full management. It's
about
a no-brainer.
About 85% of our portfolio manage with us, and that is gradually increasing.
Exactly.
Well, your book is broken into 3 parts and various 50 chapters.
51 chapters.
51 chapters. At the beginning, your first chapter is preparing for successful letting. I want to ask Kristian actually, what do you believe you need to do before you start out as a landlord?
So I think preparation is the key to success. I think you can refer that to
Paul's going to give you marks out of 10.
Pretty much any business. But I think, what I always say to landlords when we're talking to landlords at the start of the journey, touching on what you talked about earlier, it's a business. Take a professional approach. It's not personal. It doesn't matter if that was your family home for 20 years. Yeah. The moment you move out and decide to become a landlord, that ends. It is no longer your home. It is the tenant's home, and you are offering a service to those people. We always say, look, give the property over in the way you would like the tenants to hand it back. Yeah. So the more, if you can, spend as much as you can, not only getting that property compliant, but looking good.
How does it stand out from another property?
Give it a fresh lick of paint. Give it a good clean. Change that broken light fitting. Get rid of that grotty old sofa. Invest in money, because what you're going to do, you're going to get a better rent. You're going to attract a better tenant,
and you're going to have less voids as well.
You're going to have less voids.
The clue is in the word invest.
Exactly, and when they move into it, they are going to feel valued, and they are going to return that by looking after your property for you. Exactly.
In the book, you also talk about the biggest challenge in today's world being changing legislation or rules.
Yes.
Why would you say that is such a challenge? I mean, it might be pretty obvious. But...
So it's look. Let me put this in perspective, Carl.
What is it? About 145
there's over 140
laws.
There's 140 rules and regulation, but since 2015, right, when I wrote the first book, there's been 13 different law changes in regulation with regard to the private rental sector. Right, it's unprecedented,
and that's just individual laws, right? And then you've got interlinking legislation.
Legislation. The key is the government now wants to get hold of the private rental sector. It's 20%. The biggest problem we have a social housing crisis. The private rental sector is a sticking plaster for social housing crisis. Yeah. One thing that is a problem that will come back, and we haven't talked about bad tenants yet, and I'm sure we'll come on to that, because obviously that's in the book as well. But the biggest problem that we have is people just can't keep up to speed. I mean, at Landlord Action, which we've been running for 20 years, we still get landlords that call up our advice line. We're running 600 live eviction cases at a time, generally for rent arrears or tenants, landlords want to sell the property and so forth. We get landlords that have failed to put the deposit in the deposit scheme, and the legislation only came out in 2007.
Yeah,
right. That's the deposit scheme, and there's everything else.
Unfortunately, at Kings, we have that as well. We've just done a let only, and the landlord's taking it on. It is a bit of a nightmare.
And that's why they need letting agents. I mean, at My Deposits, which obviously I'm a brand ambassador of that company, last year alone we did over 6,500 adjudications on deposit disputes at end of tenancy, which is normally wear and tear, damage. So the key is get good service people behind you to back you up.
Yeah. And processes,
streamline, and tech. Prop tech is really, really important.
Yeah, I believe with you. I think the government's trying to drive it in to make the profession more professional and drive all landlords through agents. So probably they can legislate even more.
And next year, what's going to happen? I can tell you what's going to happen, because I've seen some of the consultation. Landlords will have to be part of a redress scheme. Okay, which means that the tenant, who's the consumer, can make a complaint about the landlord with regard to the let.
And you combine that with the ability to also be sued under the Homes for Human Habitation
Bill.
Definitely. A lot of potential culpability for landlords.
And letting agents will be regulated. Yeah. And there will be landlord register.
Well, I think letting agents, most letting agents I know want to be licensed. Yeah. They've wanted it for a very long time.
And then the rogues will fall away.
I hope so.
I think I'll have been petitioning government for nearly 50 years to license our industry.
We're just going to another break. Can't wait to be back with you guys.
Karl Knipe on LGR's Talking Property, sponsored by the Kings Group.
Η Alpha Cleaning Services είναι μια εταιρεία εμπιστοσύνης με πείρα μεγαλύτερη των 10 χρόνων στην παροικία που προσφέρει υπηρεσίες γενικού καθαρισμού σε γραφεία, επιχειρήσεις και σχολεία.
Ειδικεύεται στον καθαρισμό των χαλιών. Υπογράφοντας συμβόλαιο διάρκειας 1 έτους, έχετε εντελώς δωρεάν τον καθαρισμό των χαλιών σας. Παίρνετε έκπτωση 10% αναφέροντας το London Greek Radio.
Η Alpha Cleaning Services καλύπτει επίσης και περιοχές εκτός Λονδίνου καθώς και άλλες πόλεις. Alpha Cleaning Services.
Για πληροφορίες καλέστε Βόρειο Λονδίνο 0203 295 8888 ή 079 1788 6700. Για το Νότιο Λονδίνο καλέστε 0203 295 8889.
Kings Group has been in the high street for nearly 30 years. Agreeing a sale on your property is the easy part. Ensuring it completes and you move is the hard part in today's market. That's why we're here with you every step of the way, and there's no upfront fee. At Kings Group, we are local property experts with a proven track record. Kings have won over 50 Estes Awards for customer service, voted for by you, the public. We have also been awarded the FIFO Gold Service 2018 Award for outstanding service, voted again by our satisfied clients. We are motivated to move you with the minimum fuss in the quickest possible time, while ensuring you are given the personal customer service and advice you deserve. Kings Group, with branch offices across North London, East London, Hertfordshire and Essex. Kings Group offer a special discount of 20% to LGR listeners off all our standard fees. Simply mention LGR's Talking Property for further information. Please call on 01707 872 000 or visit www.kings-group.net. Kings Group, you only pay on results, not promises.
The Kings Group sponsors LGR's Talking Property with Karl Knipe.
Great to have you back. Just two things. If you've got a question for Paul or Kristian, we've got 10 minutes. Get it in quickly. Text us on 07376 611033 or send us a message at Twitter on @LGRTalkProperty or email the studio email studio@lgr.co.uk. Paul, in the book you list what I could see as pretty much as an A to Z guide to being a landlord. It seemed very comprehensive, and I say again, the book for me I thought was a pretty easy read, and that could be because obviously I've had quite a few years in the industry, but I didn't think so. I felt it was what I'd call a puffin read, a very easy read. Janet and well, not quite Janet and John, but it is very. You tend to use just very simple language to so the average person could understand it. Was that your actual objective?
Yes, I mean, look, it could have been in a Cockney accent, but we didn't do that. And actually, it is cheaper than a pack of fags at £10. But what I wanted to make sure we did was that people actually read the journey of what they should be looking at doing, and had a case study, and really the experience that I've had of helping landlords. I mean, for when I worked in law firms many moons ago, I mean, I started dealing with problem tenants doing evictions in 1991, right? And then obviously I started landlord action in 2000. So I put case studies in there. And then I became a landlord after. But I wanted it to be an easy read, so it didn't put landlords off. And it had to be in layman's language, which was really important.
Okay. Have you got any more plans to write any more books?
No, I might do one further down the line. Who knows what happens? I mean, really, you know, it's just to educate people, and it really it's like an update of what happens and putting more case studies in.
Something I wanted as well to get out to listeners that I thought the best part of the book was at the end of each chapter you have what they call a hot tip.
Yes.
Which actually I thought was just the major issue for each chapter, really. If you could come up with 51 hot tips, and even if you just looked at those and highlighted them and took those in, I thought they were absolutely superb.
I mean, the reason I did that was, you know what, this book about landlording is to make landlords streetwise. That's the whole thing of what I've been doing all these years. When I speak, I do public speaking, when I do the TV programme, whatever, is actually for someone to think, you know what, for argument's sake, is my property abandoned? What do I have to do? Abandonment's a massive problem. Well, I'll make inquiries with neighbours. I'll see if the properties are if the windows are blacked out and the letterbox blacked out. Is it being used as a cannabis factory?
Yeah.
What do I have to do? Who do I need to speak to? How do I do an inspection?
So you must have some good stories about the rental market over the years.
Oh, where do I start? I mean, it's funny actually. Just very quickly.
Just remember, we're on radio.
No, Paul. I know that, and I went to. I mean, just very funny. My daughter Serena is listening, and she was doing a show and tell, and I obviously when I started Landlord Action, we do evictions, and the school teacher came up to me once. She said, "What do you do for a living?" And I said, "Why is that?" She goes, "Well, Serena said to me that he kicks people out of houses who don't pay the bills," and I was so embarrassed. I suppose it is. I mean, we've done a good part of most probably 40,000 instructions at Landlord Action. Wow. And we run about 600 live cases. We're a regulated firm of solicitors. 60-70% of the work we do is Section 8 rent arrears cases. The worst rent arrears case we had was a serial bad tenant called Anthony Alexander, and I exposed him on a programme called Inside Out BBC One. He cost 6 landlords £143,000. Wow. Yeah. On this series, I will expose dodgy letting agents, which I told you, Lang & Ward. Airbnb subletting is a massive, massive problem.
I think just going back to that, there's, from what I understand, the councils have sort of a rogue landlords list. Is that correct?
They do. I sat on that panel as well. But they've got a rogue landlord, rogue letting agent list.
But they don't have a rogue tenants list?
They don't have a rogue tenants list. I've been trying to fight it for years. But one thing that we have put forward in this coalition of the abolishment of Section 21 is that all these landlord associations came together a couple of weeks ago. And I've been pushing for it for years, because what happens is you go to court, you issue proceedings, you get a Section 8 case, which is when you have a hearing date, and it's not registered as county court judgment hearing. So that means the tenant can go under the radar. The landlord doesn't enforce the money because he's throwing good money after bad, or he doesn't know where the tenant is, and they go and do it again. So we have said that every Section 8 case going forward, post the abolishment of Section 21, it should be registered as a county court judgment, and that will deter, and help landlords.
You see that as a really good thing.
Yeah, I mean, we all talked about this a little bit before the show, didn't we? I think there's this real issue when it comes to renting tenants. I mean, every landlord, every agent, you have to find that fine line between being thorough and not being too invasive in someone's life, right? And at the end of the day, if they're clever, tenants can work their way around it. But the main problem is most landlords, most agents will ask your current landlord letting agent, what's the tenant like? Now, providing they've not done anything criminal, if they are difficult tenants, most landlords or agents will go, yeah, they're fine, because they want them out of their property. I know. And and as you said, Paul, I've got a landlord at the moment. We did have to evict the tenant. Nasty piece of work. We found out afterwards that he's been a nasty piece of work to several landlords.
You don't want to bring him on the show, do you? I'm happy to expose him.
Well, as you said, we got the tenant out, and we said to the landlord, look, please take the tenant to court. Please file a CCJ against him, because we know for a fact that you're at least the third landlord he's done this to. And the landlord response was, do you know what? He's gone. I just want to
move on with my life.
Exactly. I want to close it off and move it on. And I totally understand that. But, exactly like you said, we said to him at the time, look, it's not just about you. It's about every other landlord out there. And until he has something official on his file, and we even said to him, look, we will handle the whole file for you completely free of charge. We will do all the legal paperwork, everything for free.
Because if you don't do that, then all you're doing is you're saving up another problem for everybody else.
And you're just passing it down the line. Some other landlord is now stuck with him, and I know full well he will be dishing that same dirt.
We've had serial bad
landlord.
tenants. We've had a trainee barrister. We've had a solicitor. We've had a financial advisor. We've had an English teacher. It's a nightmare. I talk about in the book about referencing. Being so methodical.
I've noticed with private tenants or part housing benefit or housing benefit, that doesn't really come into it.
There's no classification.
There's good tenants and bad tenants.
Exactly.
Just as there's good people and bad people in life, isn't it?
Exactly.
Do you know one thing that we haven't touched on? I mean, we talked about the tenant fee ban. The thing that I worry about, and you touched on it as well, Kristian, is when it comes to referencing. So agents were charging tenants for referencing thing. Even effectively, they should be charging the landlords.
Yep.
There is an argument that landlords or letting agents are going to be much more methodical with referencing, and that could affect the bottom end of the market, where they could get turned down for quite a few properties.
This is something that I brought up with Sean Berry. I thought this might be a bit of problem on a previous show.
Yeah.
I thought that. I thought there might be a little bit of deselection by face, don't like.
I mean, that's what happened in Right to Rent. Which
and with Section 21 potentially going in the future as well.
Correct.
That is going to deepen that as well.
It will
definitely.
Going to
deepen
Guys, we're running out of time. There's a couple of things I wanted to say. It's been enchanting, fun and interesting talking with you guys this evening. But before we leave the listeners this evening, I'd like to ask you hot tips. Paul's got them in his books. Have you guys got one hot tip each we could leave our listeners with this evening?
Do you know what? I haven't read Paul's book, but I've literally, because I was handed it this evening, but I've flicked through because you mentioned the hot tip. And you know what? I've opened this, and I think this is an absolute gem. Be reasonable. Use your common sense when it comes to holding tenants precisely to their notice and deciding what's wear and tear and what's damage. Disputes can take a lot of time and a lot of hassle, so avoid them if you can. Absolutely spot on. Yeah. It's a business, but we're all humans. You know, I know of a dispute with a TDS that was filed over a £10 wine glass. I mean,
it's ridiculous.
Come on, people.
Common sense has to prevail. It is all about relationships. But for landlords, if you are getting into this, building up, I would, I really hope landlords stay in this long term. Wait, don't have a knee-jerk reaction. But actually, anything in my book, diligence.
And if you're a hands-on landlord, if you haven't used a letting agent in the last few years, and particularly, there are lots of landlords out there who haven't used an agent in the last 10 years, seriously revisit that decision, because the value you got from a letting agent 10, 12, 15 years ago was poor.
So
the value you get now is incredible.
On this day,
get a good agent.
Celebrating 75 years since D-Day, we need a bit of the D-Day spirit. We've got to stick in there and stay with it.
Most definitely.
Damn right.
Listeners, we love hearing from you on the subjects we discuss and debate, but we also want to know what you like and what you would want to hear from us in the future programmes. So text us on 07376611033. Tweet us at LGR Talk Property with your views and thoughts, or email studio@lgr.co.uk. If there's anything that we can help you with on future programmes, remember it's your show. We'll let the lucky listeners who've texted in with their questions this evening know we'll be in contact with regards to the free box. Thank you very much for all those great questions. So thank you to Paul for your openness, forthright views and your valuable time, and Kristian for being Kristian. You're absolutely fantastic.
Pleasure.
You're very, very professional, you guys, and it really, really helps the listeners decide where they're going forward. I suppose the final thing is just remember, as Joseph Jefferson said, we're all tenants on God's earth, and shortly the great landlord in the sky will give us notice that our lease has expired.
But try not to be evicted.
I was going to say hopefully not too soon. I'd like a long tenancy personally.
Indefinite.
And I wish all our listeners likewise, and good health. We're back Wednesday the 3rd of July at the same time. Till then, take care, enjoy life and be good. Goodbye for now.
LGR's Talking Property is brought to you in association with the Kings Group, your local high street property business that delivers on results and service. We'll get you moving. The views and opinions expressed on LGR's Talking Property are those of the host, guests and contributors, and are not necessarily those of London Greek Radio. While all facts, figures and statistics are carefully researched, listeners should check before taking any action based on information and advice offered in this programme. LGR's Talking Property with Karl Knipe.